busy, booked, exhausted. Your inbox is screaming at you like a siren. Your calendar is still full. Still calling yourself visible and you're just the best kept secret? Turns out I was right there with you, my friend. Wasn't getting seen, was just the best kept secret. Wasn't getting heard, definitely, kind of getting paid. But here, the magic, my friend. It's a collaboration between Colleen Stubbs and Nicole Borghi. The Voice Lab on the school platform shows you how to use podcast spotlights, summit stages, and simplified, yeah, that's right, simple outreach systems so your visibility actually works. Get seen, get heard, join the free Voice Lab on the school platform, and you're going to get it all. Because if you're working this hard, someone else should know about it. Scan the QR code today.
You're muted.
Thank you for telling me. Good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning Business Foreplay. We are joined this morning by Barbara Ringrose, and we're talking about accountability, but not the kind that you're used to. We're not going to be adding more to your plate. We're actually going to be simplifying what actually gets done. So welcome to Monday Morning Business Foreplay. And this is the strategic warm-up that makes the rest of your week hit harder. And let's be real, most people don't need more information. They need to actually do what they already know matters. And that's exactly what we're getting into today. Barbara, welcome. You're muted.
You know, that happens all the time when people tell you to mute and then somebody asks you to talk and then you're like so transfixed on what they're saying. Good morning, Colleen. Good morning, everyone. So nice to be here with you.
Yeah, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. You know, you and I go back a little bit, and I have always enjoyed sitting down with you. I feel like every time we do sit down, I really learn a lot from you. But this is not a topic that we've gotten into before, and so I'm excited for this. I feel like this is going to be all new for me. And of course, I have my handy dandy notebook ready, and I am ready to take notes. So let's dive into it.
So on Monday Morning Business Foreplay, I think before you even start your week, you need to look at things like how clear you are about what you're doing. You say you have a notebook handy, and that's a great way to start there, Colleen. But we have to look at clarity, understanding what we're responsible for. We're not responsible for hackers coming into our meeting. We're not responsible for other people's behavior. We're only responsible for self. So it's important to be clear about who you're accountable with for. Commitment. Hey, if you don't embrace the situation and you don't have passion about something, it's kind of difficult to get it jump started. So all of us know at the end of the day that we're going to have consequences, whether they are positive or they are negative. And I remember with my children early on when they were younger, they were in high school, I would say to them, do you want to sink or swim? And I think that's an important part for adults to realize in their business today. Do you want to sink or swim? Do you want to be out there with the rest of the fishes? And there's some little ones and there's some big ones, and then there's you out there. We're all different shapes and sizes out there swimming in the same ocean. So I think it's really important that we understand whatever we are doing, again, we're in control of the situation. Those outcomes of your actions are reflected by whether you take life seriously or not, whether you're choosing that sink or swim opportunity. And understand too, each one of us, we call it failures. And I'm just going to use that term because I think in this situation, most people can relate to that, Colleen. But we look at maybe what didn't go right last week or last month as a failure, but actually it's a learning tool. So I think we need to look at them more like they're milestones, because without them, what would propel us forward? How could we advance? And that's what I think about when it comes to accountability. The C's, clarity, commitment, consequences, whether we really are going forward with passion or we're trying to dive deeper to bring that up, Colleen. So this is very near and dear to me, by the way.
I can tell that, and I love that. So clarity, we all have to start with that. We know that that's definitely a good starting point. We have to be clear in not only where we're going and the end result we want, but the actions that we take today that are going to get us there. And that leads us to commitment. Are we committing to the wrong things? And I think that that's a big one because I'm a yes girl, right? Like I want to say yes to everything, but that's not beneficial to my business when I'm saying yes to everything. And as I step back from that positioning and I'm approached with different things, different opportunities, I really have learned to see what aligns not only with my end goal, but with my day to day and my immediate goals and take all of these things in consideration and then understand that people expect to be told no too. So many people, I mean, what's the percentage of no's that we get, right? And so it's not actually offensive to other people when you say that doesn't align with where I am right now. Now, if you're just like, hell no, that's crazy idea. That may be a little more offensive, right? So just being able to say that doesn't align with where I am, where I'm going, the goal I have for my group, whatever that looks like, just being able to vocalize that is huge. But then also realizing, and this puts a little pressure, I feel like, on the commitment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, but the consequences. Knowing that saying yes to everything is only going to take 3 more hours out of my week, but that's 3 hours away from I could be putting towards reaching my goal. I could be with my grandkids, that consequence. It's going to take me longer. By the end of the month, I'm 15 hours or 14 or 12 hours further from my goal than I could have been by filling my time with things and commitments that aren't in alignment.
Now that you brought that up, we all have the same amount of time. Some people think that they can create time by blocking time and so forth and so on. But I think that one of the things that we do say with too much regularity is yes on things that really don't have an impact on us, something we're not really into, something that's not going to help us in our business life. It starts with personal though. For instance, I have family members. I'm always the organizer, putting things together. I always have taken on that role since I was a young person. I'll do a group text with everyone, and everyone has the same information. And invariably, somebody will say, "What time is it? Where do we need to be? What's the address?" And it's all in there. So taking that, but going back to that responsibility, and if you don't have that in your personal life, you're not going to have it in your business life. In my opinion, you're going to be much more scattered. However, you can learn different things. We're creatures of habit, we're animals, we can learn. And saying no more often probably isn't a bad thing. It's probably a good thing because at the end of the day, we want to use SMART goals. SMART goals. Is it specific? You mentioned time. Is it measurable? Is it measured by the time? How many hours you have in a week that you're going to devote towards, networking or towards getting on podcasts or for you spending time in your personal life? Is it achievable? Is it something I can achieve in the time frame that I've selected? And is it relevant to what I'm doing? Because everything at the end of the day, back to that, it's time bound. It's a matter of time and how much time do you have within this work week that you can accomplish what it is. And being honest with yourself, Colleen, like you just mentioned about, the yes no concept. If you don't start out being honest with self, then it's going to be a real difficult hurdle for you to overcome with other people. And if you don't understand, you mentioned AI, I believe, about how you're using AI to keep you on task to say, all right, how did I do last week? Well, ask yourself, how did I do last week? I use an agenda and I look at my agenda and I can see real quick at a snapshot 7 days What did I accomplish? Well, I went out and played golf yesterday. That was a major accomplishment. But what did I do during the business week? How many phone calls did I have? How many conversations would I have? So, taking ownership of your actions, whatever they happen to be, Colleen, I think is really important in setting up and understanding mistakes aren't failures. Saying no isn't a problem. It strengthens you in your day to day activities and ultimately in your business and personal life.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that one of the things that I really enjoy and get back from my AI is that I do like a brain dump. I literally pull up my calendar from the week, go through everything, uh, how I felt about everything, put it all in there. But one thing that it does for me each week is it points out the progress I've made and the importance of that progress towards reaching my goals. Because I feel like sometimes as entrepreneurs, we get so caught up knowing that we didn't meet all those goals for whatever reason, or maybe like last Monday was totally scattered on here. I left here and went to 3 meetings where people didn't show up. It just
Oh
was like
no.
a very overwhelming day. But at the end, what came back from that and what my AI told me back is like, look, now you're prepared for worst case scenario on Monday Morning Business Foreplay. And then also you're, you know, the response to give people when they reply 2 hours after a meeting they missed and say, I really want to reschedule. You now have that response prepared because I hadn't had a response before. Now I have that. So one more thing ironed out, but just the ability to look back and see the good in that is huge. And so would you say that we need to declare one priority for a day or by a timeline, or how do you feel like that looks like?
Well, I don't know that all of you are into numbers. I'm definitely into numbers like the number 1111. When I was with my children's father, when we were dating, the number 1111 kept coming out and screaming at us. Well, my middle child, my daughter Tara, was born on 1111. You know, sometimes 11 numbers mean a lot to people. Sometimes they're hidden and we're not quite sure what those numbers are. Sometimes we're so out of sync with the numbers and what makes a good agenda or a schedule for one person could be different. So I think each one of us has to be real with ourselves. I look at, for instance, when I'm connecting with people, I choose Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as my days that I'm communicating, committing to things with other people, having a podcast, for instance, that I'm engaging on, or I'm working on a podcast for Optimize Her Too, or Wow, or just meeting new people. I like threes. Threes are powerful to me. I've had 3 marriages, I've had 3 children, I've owned 3 houses. They're very significant things that's happened over the lifespan for me. And I believe when you set too many things out there, just grabbing a number, I'm going to do 10 things today, chances are that's not realistic, that you're not going to be able to keep up that momentum. However, you could also be a very high achiever, or you have a strong assistant like my assistant, Trisha, who keeps me on task and she picks up the slack. So it all depends on how much are you in control of, how much can you handle in your schedule, your routine. Do you delegate? Do you have others that can assist you so you can meet your goals and your objectives? Clearly, clarity. If you do not look yourself in the eye, if you're not honest with self and say, oh my God, I had 10 appointments scheduled last week. Look at all the ones that got canceled. Maybe looking over some history and how effective your day has been and your schedule, your calendar has been. That will then determine the numbers, for instance, you should be focused on. And do you have downtime that you can keep your mental health, your mental clarity, that you're maybe not everybody likes physical fitness or working out, for instance, but you might want to incorporate some of those things and look on your personal side, your health side as well. But numbers to me, they're individualized. I select 3, and I think 3 is very dynamic. If I can do 4 or 5, so be it.
I love that. And so one of the little gold nuggets you just dropped that I hadn't thought about before is that I don't have someone that holds me accountable. I hire people to help with different things in my business. I had not thought about hiring somebody to hold me accountable. And that may be because I've always been the one who shows up for me. I've always held myself accountable. My parents never even had to do that. So that's interesting. But I think that that could be highly beneficial. I do have a few structured things, like I don't get on my phone during the day. I don't even turn my phone on until 9 or 10 in the morning, and I start my workday at 4 a.m. But I don't even turn it on till 9 or 10, and then I don't even look at it usually till the end of my workday. So I have a few things like that. Now, if I didn't have that in place, and the reason I put that in place was because I was constantly going in and answering text messages. I was going on and getting on Facebook and looking at messages, things like that. And so instead, I created a system where I go on at 4 a.m. when nobody's going to respond to me in their right mind or in this country. And I go respond to my emails. I respond to my messages. I respond to things like that. And people are still sleeping, and then I put it away, and then I'll respond again the next morning at 4. So it does sit, and I think people just kind of get used to that. But that has been one thing that worked with me. Let's talk a little bit about non-negotiable action blocks. Talk to us about that, Barbara.
Well, and that's again back to self, understanding self and being honest with each other. So if I have non-negotiable option blocks, that's kind of a mouthful, isn't it? So you have to look into your calendar, and this takes time. If you don't have history, you can set your calendar however you want it to be. Some people use colors, for instance, to help them. Red could be a time block if you wanted to do it on a digital calendar, or there are things in my agenda that I use, my book that's sitting right here in front of me that I use all day, all week. You may want to use color and color block them. Certain things that are non-negotiable. For instance, I used to start my day on Mondays at like 8 or 9 a.m. to sit in front of my computer, answer my emails. I decided, you know what, that wasn't working for me. Now I need to shift that. And non-negotiable, we also have to understand there's always caveats to everything I say. There's caveats to some degree because things change. Our family changes, our health changes, our systems change, our business model changes. So you have to be realistic with this. I would say setting time for certain things that you know that are truly beneficial to you, not to someone else, to you. It's very important when golf comes along that I'm scheduling Thursday as my golf day. That's non-negotiable. And then I make up the difference. I want to have a 40-hour work week. So I then have 40 hours that I am working. I don't try to overbook my clients, 3 clients a day. That is almost non-negotiable, but I realize there's a little flexibility. I can add one thing, maybe a 4th call that day, but I know when I do that, that's a little bit stressful if I'm going to do it in the right way. So I would say for me, non-negotiable for Barbara means that she's going to have certain days of the week that she's going to do certain things. On Friday, for instance, that's going to be more of a social media day or whatever that happens to be that I'm lining up calls for podcasts, whatever, for the next week. And I think it's important all of us understand for ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, maybe hearing a little bit about people that we respect out there in the community, what they feel is non-negotiable, and we can always incorporate another thing, if you will. But non-negotiable should be something that is tailored for you.
I love that. And I'm going to touch on something that a principle that is near and dear to my heart and yours. We have a lot of female entrepreneurs on here. Carl, you can still listen if you want. Shafat, you can still listen if you want. But here's the thing. I think that one of the caveats is we have to be able to extend grace to ourselves, right? And so last Sunday night, not last night, a week ago, I threw my back out, which meant that I spent last week not hardly able to sit, not able to lay down comfortably, taking tramadol all day long, and all the side effects that go with that, and still showing up. And so for me, I didn't hit all my marks last week. It's okay, because here's the thing, I showed up and I hit a lot of them. And had I taken the week off and taken downtime and just not even tried, I would be further behind. And so I am grateful that I know enough to extend myself grace and show up as best as I can each time. But we also have to be careful not to allow that grace to become a crutch, right? We don't want to be like, oh, it's a bad day, so I didn't make it. No, that's not That's not grace, right?
That's interesting that you use the word grace because for the past 2 years, I was using focus as my word for the year. One of my dear friends, Karen Miller, an attorney, she's an estate attorney. She said to me, "Hey, Barbara, what's your word for the year?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, my word for the year?" What anyway, I started it back in 23 and it was focus. And then 24, no, it was 24 and 25, excuse me, was the word focus. I decided to reuse it because it didn't do a good enough job in 24. Things happened in 23 that caused a lot of chaos in my world. And then came 26, and I thought to myself, well, what word would I want to use for to describe 26? What word do I want to focus on? And that word, interestingly enough, is grace. And I even have that in my email. If you email me, my response email will include give yourself some grace and pat yourself on the back for those things that you have accomplished. We have a tendency, I think, in our society to look at the things that we didn't accomplish. Years ago, my children's father would come home and he'd ask me that one thing that I didn't get accomplished that day. And I always felt bad. It was almost like he knew intuitively there was one thing or maybe two things that Barbara didn't get done. And then it just made me feel really bad about myself. It was a really difficult time for me, and I couldn't figure out how I couldn't get everything done. Well, I had 10 things on my refrigerator that I was supposed to do, a long post-it note that I was supposed to do each day. 10 things was just too many things. And I think he would look at those items sometimes and he would ask me about those items, and which he probably felt was doubtful that I could accomplish them. And that's probably, he could have been challenging me with them. But again, it goes back to scheduling and giving yourself grace, good word, on those things that you cannot accomplish or you're unable to because you had a mishap last week. You're human and you had a situation. And the fact that then we feel as women, we think 360. Men normally think, they focus on one thing, God bless them. And we tend to have that 360 view. Somebody mentioned in the chat multitasking, for instance. I'm thinking of my shopping list. I'm thinking of going to the salt spa. I'm thinking about this cup of coffee I have. I'm thinking about what you're saying to me on the podcast all at the same time. That's my ADD brain. That's the way I work. And I think there's a difference between multitasking and how you can keep things in line and finding out at some point where you come down to that funnel at the end of the day. This is where I'm starting, but this is truly what I'm going to focus on and that I can accomplish by the end of the day. It's important to take a look at that. And again, give yourself grace. You could not do all of those things. I was down, a call took too much time. I was having computer problems and just move on by living in fear, by condemning yourself, criticizing yourself. And I think all of us on this call would say, I'm my worst critic. God, I'm my worst critic. I do need to pat myself on the back. I need to give myself some grace so I can go forward in a productive manner.
Yeah, I love that. And you have said to me on different occasions, we're friends outside of Monday Morning Business Foreplay, and you've said to me on different occasions, give yourself grace. And what that means to me too is that, I've spent years, over 30 years, having employees and working with employees. And so when a situation comes up, I've turned that around and I say, if this happened to my employee was in this situation, where would my expectations lay for her? What would I want? And I say her because I mostly had female employees. What would I expect her to do? Where would I give her grace? And then I've learned to turn that around and give myself the same grace that I would extend to somebody else. And I think as women, like you said, we're our own worst critics, and we hold the bar high for ourselves. My husband, bless his heart, when he turned 50, he decided he's done doing anything at 6 o'clock at night.
Good for him. Congratulations.
I locked the door, but he's not clearing his dishes. He's not, nothing he's done. I'm like, how did you even decide that? Because I still go, like I go, fall in bed and go to sleep. We have a couple questions. Brenda is asking, if you add a client today, picking up extra hours for that day, do you decrease your hours on another day, Barbara?
Well, again, it goes back to looking at your performance. That was Lisa.
Oh, that was Brenda.
Brenda, sorry. Brenda, I think it goes back to looking at your capabilities and looking at your past performance. And if you're picking up another client, or can you downsize maybe one other client? You need to be realistic with your approach here because there may be somebody you can give up to take on this client to determine whether that you value this new client significantly enough. And if you want to add a couple of more hours to your work week, will that impose some hardship? Will that make you more anxious? Or is there a group you need to eliminate? Maybe you're on a group where the call is every Thursday at 9 a.m. Would it be better for you, let's say, to just go to that group every other Thursday at 9 a.m.? Take a look at that agenda, take a look at your calendar, and see what makes the best sense for you.
Okay, she also asked, how long do you think a to-do list that is realistic should be? And for me, I like to put a little, I don't know if you can see on here, I put minutes or a time in front of, and that helps me, number one, stay on task. I can set a little timer and know I've got an hour to do that or to do as much as I can on that. But that also lets me see, because I say for my day that I'm done at 3 o'clock. And so if those things don't fit in right, then they'll have to wait. I assure you, the world is not coming to an end. And then I would say to everybody too, when we talk about adding things to our calendar, I spoke with somebody over the weekend about my mom. So as most of you probably know, when my mom got her medical diagnosis, she was diagnosed that she would be homebound for 10 to 15 years and needed 24/7 care. And so I sold my businesses to care for her. I would say do not overcrowd, because here's the truth of the matter. Moments that may seem mundane and ordinary to you may be huge to your loved ones. And so you want to make sure that you can show up. Mom had a problem towards the end when she decided that she didn't decide, but she just couldn't sleep at night very good. And so she'd wake up at 3 a.m. and holler for me. And we had little baby monitors. I would go in there. I cannot tell you how many times we had a tea party at 3 a.m. And you don't want to miss the tea party. Make sure that your business supports your life. You don't want your life supporting your business. So make sure when you're saying you're going to take a few more things on or do things, maybe extend your days, make sure that you're really realizing not only what's important to you, but what's important to your loved ones, and making sure that you're taking full advantage of the opportunities that aren't going to come your way again with the people that matter most in your life. Because you can repeat tasks, you can meet with clients later, you can build your business at a different time, and you can rearrange that. But sometimes the important things in your life, you really can't.
So back to the question about how many things should you add, I go back to the threes. Now I'm thinking those three things that I'm accomplishing that day are like major things. It's not like I'm just going to read my emails, one thing. It's not that I'm going to make a phone call, that's two things. It's not, et cetera, if you get the point. It's three major things that you're doing because you're working around your day. And you need to make sure that when you are scheduling your day, that you can control it. You're using that model of you're assigning the amount of time that you're putting there. Years ago in the corporate arena, they used to come to us from time to time that we had to justify our existence. By then, every 15 minutes, we had to put in something about what we did in that 15 minutes. If that works for you, it did not work for me. I feel that by putting these things on my calendar with my side notes of other things that I want to do works. So I think that to-do list, back to you, Brenda, should be what works for you. I can only stress that with those three things. Those are three major things that I do with networking with other people, with having podcasts, whatever. They are my three big things each day. And then I have fillers, if you will, for the remainder of the day. You have to find out if you're a four task person, schedule 4. If you're a 5 task, understand that you need to have the prep time, you need to have the downtime, that you have to have your note time. If you're using a CRM, you have to be able to fill in your CRM. So it's just not the task, It's those things affiliated, associated with the task that you want to consider when you're creating your schedule.
I love that. Also, Lisa's asking, are you focusing on revenue generators? Are you focusing business building? Are you focusing certain days on certain things?
I think that's an important question that we all need to ask self again. Are you building? For instance, it took me 2.5 years when I decided to take WOW as a business instead of it just being a local in-person event where we would have 10 times a year that ladies would get together. We'd have a host. We'd have a networking session. The host would then talk about what they do to and present themselves to the ladies. And then we'd have a follow-up where everyone spoke. So I think it is up to you again on how you're going to put that together. It's not necessarily just a streamlined thing too. And another thing, one of the managers, I wanted, before we went on with another topic or another segment to this topic, is a manager years ago came to me and says, there are some times of the month, some months that you have a 4-week work schedule and you have a 5-week work schedule. So take a look and be consistent on those months that you have the 4 weeks. Every month we'll have that. And then take a look at that other one. And if there's other special projects, put them in there.
I love that. I love that. So I usually
Take care,
close off.
Lois.
I usually close off my last week of the month to make sure everything is closed up, finished, clean, complete. Circle back with my clients, make sure they don't have any oddities that they need me to do, and close out my month.
But to her point about the question about whether it is income producing or not, it took me quite a bit of time to figure, well, what do the ladies want? Because a lot of times I have found, whether it is in the mortgage arena when I was with mortgage loan officers or now dealing with ladies, it's like herding cats. So then you have to determine, well, how much money am I expecting to make? Look at your past experiences. For instance, October, make some month in the year or quarter, if you prefer. My daughter believes strongly in quarters, to look at your performance. How much money did you make? Is this what you're looking to do? Do you need to double down? And then by the end of the year, 10th month, October, take a look then on that previous 9 months, those 3 quarters, and see if your income was significantly different, or was it lateral to or slightly above below the previous year's performance? If you're new in business, it's going to take you time to get that track record. So I think understanding, and also you can do things like using AI, you can do this, just Google it. Someone in your position doing what you're doing, what can you expect as far as a salary or income for that position? Because I think there are times, especially as women, and I'm sure there's men on this call, you can relate to this as well. I should just say people, that our expectations are greater than what the actualities of the situation may be.
Very good. All right. I have, let's see, let's talk about creating a quick proof of completion. What does that look like to you, Barbara?
A quick proof of completion. Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so again, I say caveats to everything because some things are building as you go along. So for instance, I want to work on my CRM. That CRM, that never gets completed. It's only updated and then it's taking the time then putting in place. Again, we need to make sure that we're putting these things in our schedule. Some things we know that are going to be a continual. There will never be a quote completion, but there are other tasks that we do that are completed. For instance, inputting my invoices for the prior month into my books, into my book, if you will, whatever that happens to be that you're using for your invoices to see what expenses you're incurring and income that you're creating, to make sure that you have some sort of timeline that you're establishing what your income was, what your production was. I know another way, for instance, for completion, if you had determined in the beginning of the week that you're going to make 10 phone calls a day, Monday through Thursday, use tick marks at the end of your week so you can see how many of those did you truly complete. So completion is very important. That gives you a sense of accomplishment. It gives you a sense of pride. So it's really important to complete certain things, understand other things. They're going to be open-ended. So you have to determine what are those tasks that will become completed. Starting a website, creating a page on a website. You have a date that you want to complete that project. Make sure that you're following and you're on task with doing those instead of incorporating other things that aren't producing income for you.
Right, I agree. And I think that when we go back to the SMART goals, and I'm just going to drop this in here, that when I look at my SMART goals, some things can't, like you were saying, just can't just be checked off. Those are the items that I turn into a time one. And so I'm going to spend 2 hours building this out and then just really sit down and dive into that. Or I'm going to spend 30 minutes working on my CRM. That becomes your goal instead of like, I'm going to complete my CRM because it's a never ending thing, right? And
Right.
so that's kind of how I turn that around in my SMART goal workup. All right, let's take a few minutes and open this to questions. Does anybody want to come off unmute themselves and ask any questions?
I have Tina Miller on here. That's exciting.
I do not know Tina.
Tina Miller is part of WOW, much like you are, Colleen. She is an amazing person in our community. I would love to hear about Tina because Tina also could probably add to this conversation. She's highly skilled.
All right, we have a couple questions. Let's take those and come back to Tina. That'll give Tina a minute to come up with something brilliant to share with us. And Tina, I look forward to meeting you. Also, Barb, I want to make sure that we have a couple minutes for you to share about WOW with everybody. So, Carl, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I agree with everything you said. One thing that I do, and it's just personal to me, I don't know what you think of it, but I'd be curious to hear, is every 3 months I have what I call a talk with Carl, and I put it on my calendar. Everything is run, my calendar runs my life. And so what I do is to talk with Carl. I take notes on everything that works well, everything that doesn't work well, and I keep those notes. And then every 3 months, both personally and business wise, I look at that to figure out what I could improve on, how I could schedule it better, maybe some things I need to get rid of, some things I may need to do more of. And so basically I just call it a talk with Carl, but everybody could have their own. Barbara, you could have a talk with Barbara, I guess. But I'm just curious, what do you think of that?
Well, and I said previously, every year in October, I take a look at the previous 3 quarters. And my daughter Lindsay had suggested, Mom, you ought to look at it every quarter. And she's right. You're 100% on target with that too, Carl, in that you are doing it on a quarterly level because you can continue doing the same thing over and over again. And we know that the definition of insanity, right?
Right.
Okay, so you could continue to do the same thing over and over again through the next 2 quarters, since we're ending quarter 1, and then find out that it's all wrong for you. And until you ask yourself, well, wait a minute, look at yourself, and I talk to myself in my settings on my camera, and I watch myself as I speak sometimes, and it's before I get on a podcast, it's before I do my Wow Reel Friday. And I think that's one of the things we might want to do. Also, when I speak sometimes and I have something important I want to discuss, I will look in the mirror in my bathroom and I'll start talking to myself. So, whatever it is, these may sound silly, but Carl, I think what you're doing is great. I think finding a way, whatever that marker is for you, for some people it's a 30-day marker, for some people it's a 3-month marker, is finding what that out, or the end of the week, have your end of the week meeting with self to make sure that you've accomplished your goals. The sooner you find out what's working, what's not working, the better off you're going to be, the less anxious you're going to be, the less fearful of that Monday morning start of your day that some of us start at 5 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah, I really don't like myself that well, so 3 months works for me. More than that would be really bad. The one other thing I'd like to see what you think about. I think I run into a lot. I do business consulting as well as our networking organization, but I
Mm-hmm.
find a lot of people, whether they have potential clients or whatever it is, they let other people dictate what they do instead of they dictate to the client. In other words, I'm a firm believer that if you've got a set appointment, let's just say it's a networking event, and if it's an integral part of your business, that's an appointment. That's something you need to do, and don't let somebody change it. I personally feel that most people like to work with people who are busy, not available 24/7. And so they will, say, hey, I've got an event I have to go to. It may not be about making money, but this person, unless they're going to die or something, and they have to see you to make a sale, I think you ought to stick to what you're doing, and you control your life. Don't let other people control your life.
Years ago, I was in mortgage and I couldn't find a woman anywhere to talk to more than having one conversation about business. That was after the turn of the century. So I ended up with these three men. One of the men had to drop out because he had young children. Wife was really in need. And so the three of us met me and two men. I called it my men's group twice a month for 7 years because I couldn't find any female who wanted to carry on a business conversation. And I thought one of the things that inspired me most with one of the gentlemen I used to have coffee and a donut every Friday morning for, talk about commitment. Before that, was we talked about the tail wagging the dog, exactly what you're saying. Whatever that is, don't let other people, the tail, wag you. You're the dog. The three C's: clarity, commitment, consequences. If I make an appointment with you and we're just chatting, and then Colleen comes back and says, Barbara, I'm going to give you a donut and coffee free. Why don't you come with me? I'm going to say, sorry, Colleen, I'm busy. Carl and I have already made a scheduled an appointment. We'll have to schedule another time. There's nothing wrong with that. But I believe in commitments. I value commitments highly. If somebody comes along with a better opportunity, you made that first, unless, of course, it's extreme, and that's a judgment call. We understand that. Something happens in your personal life. Colleen spoke about her mom. There's things that happen that those events that we need to, change our commitment, and other people would certainly understand. But commitments are vital, in my opinion.
Yeah,
That's part of accountability.
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and there are exceptions to the rule, but most of the time people will be flexible with you. Don't allow them to change your schedule.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa, it's your turn. And I just want to say before you start, if everybody wants to use the chat, go ahead and add your information in the chat. Make sure you save it. I did not save it. Lisa, go ahead.
All right. I love this because I'm like you, I'm a numbers person and I'm a planning person. So I usually do a Sunday night plan, but then I also do a Monday morning, like I like to call it my Monday morning CEO 15-minute outlook. And I noticed that you said you used to do your emails first, and then you realized that wasn't working for you. So what are some things that you found happening to yourself through your day or through your week when you were starting your Mondays with going through your emails, and how did you recognize how to change it and make that shift, and what shift made the most difference for you? I know it's like 5 questions, sorry.
I know that's a lot. And you're going to have to bring me back and get me on task because I want to answer all of those, of course. And some of the things work differently for other people. That's why God made Post-it notes. That's why God made line business cards, index cards. I think that's why God made line paper. You have to find your agenda, whatever it is. You have to go back and find whatever it works for you. Doing a Sunday night and then do a Monday morning kind of seems almost like counterproductive. If you've already done it on Sunday, why are you doing it on Monday morning? And I think the important thing is when you are scheduling or time blocking, that's what you're saying, Lisa, and you're going over. When I was time blocking my emails, what I was finding was I would get so wrapped in those emails. And I think, Colleen, you alluded a little bit to this earlier, where the next thing you know, then, my daughter would call me squirrel. The next thing you know, that email is making you out to be a squirrel. And now you're jumping and doing all these things. And you're not just reviewing the emails and prioritizing them, you're following in them. And before you know it, it's 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And what did you do? So I would say, Tara's coming into my mind, stop being a squirrel. If there's certain important things, you don't need to read every email. And sometimes it's probably best for you to take an hour a couple of times a week and get rid of as many of those emails as possible. The sundown rule, you have to have certain rules. And one of those is the close of business. Sundown may not literally mean sundown. It could be at that time of day. My sundown rule is at 5 o'clock, I'm not answering anybody anymore. you know, take a look at your schedule again and look at and hold yourself accountable to whatever that is working. Carl talked about, look at every quarter or every month, talk to yourself, find out what's working for you. And you probably had another question or so that I did not answer, Lisa.
I actually think you hit most of them. My Sunday night is a little bit different than my Monday morning, so I understand that. What we each have, the tools that work are the tools that we use, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so we each have to know what tools are going to work for us. And what I usually recommend to people is give something at least 21 days, right? That's 3 weeks of consistency. And if it's not working for you after 3 weeks of consistency, it's probably not the right tool. But if you give up on it, most people give up at around day 15 or 16. And that's usually right where your breakthrough is.
You
But
hit
if you were
something
going
there.
to, right, if you were going to say, like, the most important thing that happened to you to have you understand this, how to block time for yourself, like, because sometimes we don't understand, like, we see things happening, but we have our like rose-colored glasses on, so we're not paying attention to it. And sometimes when people say, this kept happening to me and then I realized it was not beneficial, that can trigger for the rest of the audience listening, like, oh yeah, I have things kind of like that that happen to me. And that could be the trigger for somebody to say, oh, maybe my system actually, I think it's working for me, but maybe if I take a step outside of it and look at it, maybe it's not working for me. Did you have a moment like that?
Yeah, I can tell you that I had many moments like that. And I think some of those things are, as Colleen talked about, is the cell phone. I know there are times where people during the course of their day, they will do things like to distract themselves looking at Facebook, whatever it happens to be. And it's understanding yourself. And I think what I realize for myself is during the day, I don't pay my bills. I don't go and do personal phone calls with people, or I schedule them at a time that I can sit back from my business and focus on that person. But I think that involves a little bit of tenacious type behavior on somebody's part, and making those commitments that I'm not going to drift out there. But there's been many milestones, many milestones as well, where I've recognized something like phone calls. Some people get a lot of phone calls and they feel the need to return every phone call. Is that phone call relevant to your business and for you to succeed in your business or your work week? Sometimes it's always not about making money.
Yeah, I would agree. And so we're going to close this up here shortly, but we want to take a few minutes and hear from Tina.
Hi, thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Barbara. It's great to be here. I'm grateful for this conversation. And I have two thoughts that I wanted to share. The first is that in taking time for yourself, I find that your morning routine is really going to set you up for your day. So whatever that looks like for you, for me, it's a 2-hour routine. I wake up, between 6 and 6:30 so that I'm ready by about 8:30 to come downstairs and make my tea and hit the electronics. But those 2 hours set me up for success for the rest of my day. And then it's been said that the best way to make sure that you have a great day, your day actually starts the night before. So are you setting yourself up with an evening routine that helps you make sure you get the sleep that you need? And then the other school of thought in regards to time blocking, there is a new mechanism called focus blocking, where it takes the thought of an athlete needing to do interval training, how physically you can only do so much as you're training your muscles to acclimate to new, additional oxygen when you're training. The same can go for your mind. So using focus blocks, using intervals in your focus and the time that you set for different tasks or different projects can be really helpful. They say that you can work up to 4 90-minute focus blocks. The focus blocks for optimal focus are 90 minutes of no distraction and deep dive into whatever you're doing. But then after that 90 minutes, you take a break. The recommendation is I tend to juggle between 2 and 3 focus blocks a day. They say no more than 4 is healthy for an individual, and that you should, at a minimum for a project, have 3, 4, or 5 focus blocks strung together sometime in a close proximity of time within a day or a week to help you, depending on the nature of the project or the tasks that you have at hand. So I just wanted to share those 2 thoughts that, your evening and your morning routines really set you up for success personally. And then focus blocks are something new for interval training for your brain and your activities to help you stay in line and focused on what you're trying to do.
I love
This
that.
really resonates. I'm
I was
sorry.
actually watching an Alex Hormozy thing this weekend, and he was saying that he does 2-hour focus blocks throughout the day. I think he does 3 of them. So yeah, I think that.
Well, I guess the number depends on you. Like I said earlier, some people are, they're like super, super multitaskers. They've got assistants. They can delegate. They have things that are different in their day from, let's say, someone else. A new person in business is trying to do everything themselves until they get to a point where they're making money so that they can justify incorporating, somebody, either a digital AI component to it, or let's say someone like my digital assistant Trisha that I can utilize. So if you're starting out in business, it kind of depends on where you are and as to whether or not you can add things to your day to enhance your day, enhance your business and schedule.
I love that. Barb, we're going to close. Do you have anything that you want to add?
Always, always, always. We do WOW meetings, ladies, on the first and third Mondays of the month. They're from 11 a.m. Eastern Time to noon. And we have a speaker on the first Monday of the month. I put in wowwomenus.com and the chat. If you'd like to join us, take a look at that schedule. People like Tina are on that call. I'd like to offer anyone on this call who would like to have a consultation with me, please email me. I've also included that so we could do a 30-minute consultation together. And I'm also an author. It was Aruba Vacation, Aruba Joe, where it's a romance novel. It's a nice book read, if you like something mindless to get into, during those time blocks during the week where you have self time, maybe do some reading. I think reading is fundamental. I really, truly mean that. So reach out to me and I will send you a copy of Aruba Vacation with Aruba Joe autographed by yours truly and at no charge.
I love that. So here's the truth. You don't need more plans. You need proof. If today helped you see when you've been overcomplicating things, the next step is simple. Pick one priority and finish it. We're going to take a break. Or we're going to close. I think we have a commercial to play. Nicole, do you have that handy or shall we skip that? I do not have it handy.
I don't. Yeah.
About one. Okay, we'll skip it this week. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you coming. And Barbara, thank you. Huge thank you for sharing your gold nuggets with us. I am excited to meet with you, to be pals with you, to do business with you, all of the above. And I would really encourage everybody, take a minute, click the 3 dots at the top of the chat and push save chat. And then you can select show and folder. It will show you where that is so you don't lose it, so that you can connect with each other. And we will see you tomorrow. We have Voice Lab podcast. Thank you all.
Thank you all very much on
Thank
this
you.
Monday
Have a
Morning
great
Business
day.
Foreplay. Stay well.